So hey everyone out there who is joining us on Facebook Live. We appreciate you joining us on a Tuesday evening. Hopefully you've enjoyed your dinner or have dinner and just kind of have us in the background. So today we have very special guests and I will introduce them in a little bit. But as always with these events, we want to create just a general information or introduction to Catholic Charities Yola Solano for those of you who may not be familiar with who we are. So Catholic Charities Yola Solano, we have been serving our community for almost 80 years. We're coming up on our 80-year anniversary. We're very excited. And that, we focus on strengthening and stabilizing families and individuals in our community because, the individuals, the families, those are the people who make our community, right? It's not institutions, it's not other organizations, it's really the people, our neighbors, our friends and family who make our community. And so the stronger we all are, the more that we are addressing the needs of those who are most vulnerable, the better off we will all be in the end. And Catholic Charities is a ministry of the Catholic Church. So we are rooted in Catholic social teaching. And so in order for us to live out our mission, we focus on, again, providing strengthening and stabilizing services. So those include our food access program. So we do have food pantry. We help folks see if they're eligible for CalFresh or food stamps. And we also provide nutrition education. We also focus on counseling. So therapy, group classes. We do have a free parenting class available in both English and Spanish. So for those of you who are interested, please check out our website. And let's see, we also have our rental assistance program, which for those of you who are either behind on rent or need help with future rent, in Solano County, we are administering the emergency rental assistance program that is open. And for those living in Yolo County, we do have information about the statewide program that is available to those residing in Yolo County. In addition to all these, we also have our immigration legal services program, and we are proud to provide free or very low cost immigration legal representation in several matters. Again, this service is available in both counties, Yolo and Solano. We also support reentry. So for those who have been justice involved and also have a mental health diagnosis, we want to make sure that we are providing the most positive social support for those who are wanting to rehabilitate and improve their lives right after those experiences. So we are very proud to participate in the reentry services. And last but not least, our disaster case management programs, which are ready to launch soon. And these are in response to the August of 2020, the LNU lightning complex fires that impacted our northern Solano County and also Yolo County. So if you have been impacted by those fires, if you still need assistance, again, we encourage you to check out our website, to call our office and get registered. And we have a lot of great opportunities coming up. So that's a little bit about Catholic Charities. And just one final plug, June 19th, save the date, we do have a virtual fundraiser auction, which is going to be a lot of fun. It is the day before Father's Day, so if you haven't yet bought Father's Day gifts, this auction is a great event. There's going to be a lot of great options to bid on. It's going to be fun and engaging and a great way to support our ministry and making sure that we're able to respond to the ever-changing needs in our community. So today we have very special guests. We have Deacon Kevin Stasco, and I apologize if I mispronounced that, and I will learn how to pronounce it. And we also have Anthony Ta from the Diocese of Sacramento. We're both from the diocese. So actually, I'll let you gentlemen introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about your roles with the diocese.
You know, that's okay, Miriam. Ta is a lot easier to pronounce than Stasco, so it's okay. I'm Deacon Kevin Stasco. I direct the Office of Youth and Young Adult Ministry and Family and Faith Formation for the Diocese of Sacramento. And I've been here at the diocese. It'll be going on, my 13th anniversary at the diocese is on June 2nd. So it's been a while. I've been here for a long time.
Yeah, and I'm Anthony Stahl, Regional Youth and Young Adult Ministry Coordinator for the Diocese of Sacramento. So basically, I just network with youth and young adult ministers and try to help them build their program the best it could be. I started back in August in the middle of the pandemic. It's been an interesting ride.
Yeah, I hired Anthony completely online, so I never actually physically met him when I hired him. HR was what happened.
The first time we actually met face to face was late September.
Yeah, late September. So I hired him in August. We met late September. So we have a long-standing Zoom relationship. So it's very strange that we're actually together. Like this is what, like I think we've been back in the office like for 3 weeks, but it's like we just have not spent a lot of time together in person. It's very weird. So.
Well, thank you both for being here. And then we also have joining us today, Jim Legault, who's chairman of the board for Catholic Charities of Solano. Do you want to say any words, Jimmy?
I love every minute of this. I'm a big fan of young adult ministry, especially future of our church and ways in which we as the older generation and mid-generation can find ways to partner up with our younger, flocks and just address these needs in a whole new way for the next generation. So I'm looking forward to the presentation. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this.
All right, you're welcome.
Yeah, and we'll keep it pretty informal, and this is really the goal of these speaker series events is, introducing the community, not only Catholic Charities, but also expanding the knowledge about, why is it that we do what we do, maybe inspire folks to reach out to a local ministry, to volunteer, to really participate in creating positive change, right, in our community. We've all been impacted by the pandemic in one way or another. I think many of us have been very focused on survival. Others have been inspired to go out and do maybe things that they hadn't been able to do, or they regretted not being able to do before the pandemic hit. And one of the reasons that we invited our guests today is because young adult Catholics, right, young adult ministry is so important. It really, is the lifeblood of the future of our ministries. And there's so much potential, there's so much offering. And I think being able to explain and to connect not only Catholic social teaching, the ministries, but how that plays out in real life, right? I think a lot of times we think that it has to be some grandiose action, but it really doesn't have to be that big. So actually, let's start with some just general questions, right? Why are you, Deacon Kevin and Anthony, inspired to do what you do?
To start, I would really add that young adults aren't just the church of the future, but the church of now. Like getting young adults involved in everything that happens in parish life in the church, I think is very vital to really just how we grow as a church. I mean, if we're waiting for them to just become the church of the future, we're stunting their growth. We're not giving them the wisdom, we're not giving them the time and energy to really hone in on what God calls them to do and be. And so I really enjoy doing youth and young adult ministry because it's about helping them become what Christ calls them to be now. And then from there, really set the tone for the future of the church that extends on and on and on, right? And so that's where I'm at.
No, and I think for me, I started in youth ministry in the 90s, early 90s actually, and been doing it since then. And so I did 15 years in the parish, and then I've been at the diocese about 13 years. My wife is still working in the parish, and she always reminds me that I've forgotten what it's like in parish life. So that's why I have Anthony out in the field trying to figure it all out. But I want to let you know that I don't think the goal of youth and young adult ministry has changed since when I started. I mean, we were just trying to connect young people to Jesus Christ, and service was always a part of that, right? That was always a really attractive part of youth and young adult ministry was mission. At that time, it was mission trips, right? And we had service hours for confirmation, right? We were always trying to fill those darn service hours for confirmation. We usually don't do that anymore, but it was like, connecting them with different agencies. And I want to tell you that's one of the biggest, you might want to make a distinction between youth and young adult ministry, but it's kind of hard to connect to service projects. Like everybody assumes every kid from age second grade, or maybe even kindergarten through faith formation, every chapter in their book ends with, you need to go and put this into action, right? They go home, their parents aren't putting it into action really, right? They may be volunteering at the parish, doing a few things here and there, doing the rice bowl, sending some money in for this or that, right? But they're not actively serving the poor. And it's not as easy to connect with agencies as you think it is, right? So I think that would be my one thing that, you know, that I've struggled with through my entire life in youth and young adult ministry is, how do we make this more accessible for young people, right? Usually the social justice committee in the average parish is older people that meet on Tuesday mornings, right? And you know, they do a lot of great work at the St. Vincent de Paul or in a social justice committee, right? But they never meet when like a, you know, with a young adult or a youth could meet, because young adults are at work, youth are at school. You know, it's like the programs that we ask these young people to participate are just not really open to them. And my first, the most exciting job I ever had in youth ministry was a middle school ministry job. And I inherited a huge middle school ministry program. It was 40 small groups. And the 40 small groups, some of them met in the home, some of them met at the parish. And it was this huge amount. So I had, you know, I had 80 volunteers, 2 for each group. And I was in charge of like resourcing them, getting them to go. And I said one year, I'm like, we are going to add a service component to this thing. So at the beginning of the year, I gave this big speech. I said, all right, you guys are all going to do a service project. And at the end of the year, we're going to have a service fair, and we're going to give awards for the best service project, right? The hardest thing in the world that year, harder than confirmation, harder than anything else I did, was trying to find 40 small group service projects in the Bay Area. Are there 40 nonprofits in the Bay Area? Absolutely. But how many of those nonprofits will take junior high kids to directly serve the poor? Absolutely none of them, right? I mean, it was impossible. So here was an idea, you know, it's like me, I didn't do my research ahead of time, right? But I spent the entire time trying to hook them up with projects. The next year I went to our social justice committee and I said, hey, you know, I've got all these kids I want to serve. You know, could you set the projects up for them? Because I was really unsuccessful doing it. And I had a couple people in that group try to do the same thing. And it wasn't easy to connect, especially kids under 18 with projects. So that's the one thing I would say to people out there. If you are serving the poor on a regular basis, could you bring some teens with you, right? I mean, that's the best ministry we could do, is bring a group of teens. That you shouldn't be serving the poor or doing this social justice work without bringing a young person with you. You know, I was recently at a pro-life gathering and they were saying the same thing. We're not going to let you to come back to the next pro-life gathering unless you bring someone under 40 with you, right? That's your ticket to get into this meeting, because we're all over 60, right? And so, and I'm not saying that the, you know, amazing work being done by our seniors, but if we want the next generation to really latch onto these programs, we may have to shift how we do them. We may have to shift the rules on who gets to serve. We may need to make the barrier to entry easier. You know, when I was a Deacon, yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say that kind of goes, because you hear it on the other side too, right? Oh, nobody's volunteering, nobody's signing up, right? And then as you know, as you're growing up as a Catholic, you want to put your faith in action, right? It's a calling. You kind of get tugged by it. But if you don't have those opportunities, then what it's going to replace it, right? And we have so many things in society, social media, other campaigns that are flooding our system, that when opportunities to live out our faith aren't available, we're going to go somewhere else, right? But it's a good reminder.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that's the thing, you know, like, you know, Anthony can talk more about the reality of young adult groups in our diocese, but most of those young adult groups are centered around adoration, or centered around speaker series, are centered around small group faith sharing, right? And all of that stuff is really important. But in most of our young adult groups, what's missing is a connection to doing real service in the community. And I kind of feel like we need to work together, you know, Catholic Charities and the diocese and the parishes. We need to work together to like lower the barriers, make it really easy to do, right? Or easy to connect with, right? And I think it's hard because it takes kind of a culture shift on both sides. It takes the young adults being encouraged and you know, and preached to on the importance of the Catholic social teachings on one side, right? But it takes, on the other side, it takes the agencies to go, well, heck, you know, this is maybe not convenient for my employees, or maybe not convenient for my current volunteer base, but we really want youth and young adults to do this. So we're going to shift the time to the evening, to the weekend, to, you know, to a time that's convenient for this young adult group to attend, right? I mean, I think That's some of the things.
Yeah, it's all about accessibility. Because we know young adults go through a lot of things: work, school, family obligations, and whatnot. And so the whole idea is a lot of the opportunities are done in the morning or early afternoon to make sure things get done. That means they're at work. How can they actually go and help and serve, right? And so the whole idea is accessibility, but of course they have to make sacrifices as well. And so it's meeting at that middle ground of what's going to work for both parties and what's going to really have everyone accompany each other. Because the main thing is relationship, correct? Is building those connections. And so the young adults are like, no, this is my ministry. This is the place I want to be at and help out. But at the same time, the organization needs to be like, they're a part of us. They belong to us. Let's reach out, work together, not get stuck in what we just continue to do and do and do. Because like you said, ministry and service, it's a call. They want to do it. They want to serve. But the thing is, how are we helping them get there? How are we making it easy? And then we see all these other organizations that aren't Catholic who are doing it and making it easy for them. And so, of course, they're going to go to the places that are working with them, making it accessible. And so we just got to find that middle ground of what works for us and them and really make that the spirit of collaboration.
Yeah.
So challenge accepted. I feel challenged.
You know,
All right.
I also want to let you know that my girls are 14 years old. I have twin daughters. They just turned 14. They're just starting high school, right? Like, and they've been watching the Disney Channel since they were 5, right? Every week on the Disney Channel, there's some commercial about like, you know, go make a difference, you know, plant trees, do this, whatever, right? They are service oriented. They know that they are called to make a difference in the world. Unfortunately, not because the church told them, because the Disney Channel told them, right? But they're also very Catholic, right? They've been in church every week. I take them every week, rain or shine, they go, right? And they've been involved in ministry at the parish. But they've never been offered in our parish a opportunity to actually serve the poor. Yes, bring in cup of noodles. Yes, bring in diapers.
Help with
the giving tree, right? I mean, that's like 4, you know, it's 4 levels beyond, you know, the poor. And they can go on Christmas and fight with the other teens to carry the giving tree stuff to the car, right? But they have to sit there for 45 minutes before they get to carry one present. I got to carry one present to the car because so many people want to volunteer, right? And so that's the other issue too, is I know there's a lot of need out there. How do we create a easy pathway for people to get involved? Because if they don't get involved on a regular basis, they're not going to do it as an adult. And most of the people that you talk to that are really active in social justice ministry as young adults or older adults, what's common in their life? My parents did it. They dragged me along, right? They went with me. So that's the other piece is, you know, we need to start in high school and junior high with inviting families. But I do think there's some space for young adults because, like I said, I think young adults have a desire to serve. They're just not serving, you know, a lot of them are having a hard time serving. They'll make a few calls, you know, whatever. You know, I volunteered at Loaves and Fishes, right? And as a deacon, I was required to do it, right? I wanted to, but it was hard for me to get out there, right? I wanted to get to Friendship Park. I had to do an orientation meeting. I had to do an interview. I had an application. I had to get safe environments trained. I had to do it. I'm just saying, like, there was 9 levels of you know, it was like it was a high barrier to entry. I was already a deacon candidate, and it completely screened by the diocese. All this stuff, and I was like, wow, an average volunteer that wants to volunteer, like, would they go through this whole process to get out there on Friendship Park, right? And again, we want them to be screened, we want them to be whatever, but we need to be aware that sometimes those screenings, those barriers, like, it turns people off, right? You know, they're not as Catholic as we are, right? You know, like, you know, they're not a deacon candidate, like young adult about serving, right? They're just a young adult that wants, you know, really, I have to take time off work to come to an orientation at 10 o'clock on a Thursday? I mean, really?
You know, and, you know, from Catholic Charities perspective, we see so many opportunities, right? Like, for example, right now with our rental assistance program, we have amazing work being done by our parishes. You know, Holy Spirit leaders, they actually are organizing a application assistant event this Saturday afternoon, right? We brought it, you know, well, Holy Spirit was able to bring in over 30 volunteers, but where are the youth, right? Where is that reach out to those who are available on a Saturday afternoon and want to do that one-on-one assistance and hearing the anxiety and
you know, Miriam, that Holy Spirit, has 230 candidates a year that are confirmed in that parish. 230 8th graders that are required to do a service project, a group service project with their group. Like, imagine if you could activate those. I mean, that's our frustration. Our frustration too is a lot of those kids are not, because they're not being connected with in high school or in junior high, they're not staying with the youth group in high school, and they're not joining the young adult group in the numbers that they should. So, because if you have 230 kids confirmed, and only 20 kids are in the youth group and only 10 kids are in the young adult group, that's pretty bad, right? Like,
it is,
But I do think if we could involve them in meaningful service that connected their faith, again, faith without works is dead, right? So we have a lot of dead faith Catholics. The works are not connected. We don't do enough. And I'm not saying that we're not willing to change. We're willing to promote whatever. We're willing to do the work because we think it's important. But again, it's not easy for us to figure out how do we connect young adults to these programs, because it's, you know what I mean? Again, and sometimes just like with parish life, you got these young adults, they go to the parish and, the secretary's mean to them one time and they don't never come back to church, and they decide not to get married in the church. Why? Secretary was mean to me, right? It's the same thing with like Catholic Charities. I went to volunteer. They sent me this form. It was 3 pages long. I don't know if you do that, but again, and to us, it's an administrative detail. You got to do that for everything else. But to them, it's like, well, this is how the Catholic Church respects me. They make me fill out a 3-page form and take time off work to volunteer my time. Come on, Miriam. You know what I mean?
Challenge accepted. Go ahead, Anthony.
Another thing would be also the way it's given out and promoted. I would say, like, honestly, we're used to putting things in the bulletin, the announcements, the usual traditional things. But if you look at young adult ministry, young adults and teens now, where do they get all their information? Social media. Right. And not just that, but friends, and also the hype, as in like the excitement of it. And so who's excited? Is it just the older generation, or is it their generation as well? And how do we get them excited for it? Right. And so it's us being creative and reaching out and speaking their language, honestly.
Can they sign up in 10 seconds on their phone? If not, they probably will blow it off. I mean, they'll move on to the next thing, right? The Kanye video or whatever, right? I mean, that's the thing, is like, it's like some of the other churches and organizations that really bring in a lot of young adults, you literally can sign up for their event 10 seconds on their phone, right? It's not a extra, I got to make a call. I gotta go off Instagram to sign up. You know what I mean? So, but that's the thing. And it's not fair, right? It's not fair. And if they were really Catholic, and we can say that all we want, if they were really Catholic, they would take the extra step to sign up for Miriam's program, right? But we can say that as long as we want, but a lot of them are leaving, because of, in our opinion, it's a dumb reason, right? You left because you couldn't sign up on Instagram. But again, that's their mindset, right? Everybody else who wants their time and attention is spending $1 million to get that time and attention. And we're spending nothing, right? And saying, we're the Catholic Church, come and get it, right? We got the truth, right? I mean, that's the thing, right?
That's a big thing, because meaning is a big thing with young adults and teens, right? And what we do has meaning, but the thing is, how are we actually providing that meaning for them? How are we actually telling them, hey, this is meaningful, and this is how it's meaningful? The thing is, all the other places, they spout meaning, but they spend so much money on it, it actually looks meaningful. While we're just like saying, hey, come do this.
Ours is meaningful, but it doesn't look meaningful, right? It is meaningful, but you got to read the page 4 before you find the meaning, right? It's not communicated and we argue all the time with parishes, like, you need to spend more money on technology. We need to spend more money on social media. You need to have a person on your staff that hypes things on social media.
Really speak the language and tell them exactly what's being done, why it's being done, and how it actually adds to the quality of life. Right? A lot of these people are looking for direction. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, one of the last events that I did with you, Anthony, we talked about, right? How do you connect that deep faith, that wanting to belong and to know that what you do is meaningful, and how do we bring that out, right? It's like getting dirty, right, and doing the works of mercy. So just kind of going back to Catholic social teaching, right? It's, yes, you have your works of mercy where you're one-on-one, you're helping out events, but then there's also the larger common good, right? Like, for example, we're a member institution of Common Ground, and we're gearing up for a statewide action to advocate for an extension of the eviction moratorium, right? Like, I think let's get all of our institutions, all of our parishes engaged, because it impacts everybody, right? And to be able to say, I was there and this is why the eviction moratorium was extended, like, that is golden to me. I don't know if that would be something that's meaningful.
And that's the thing, like I believe it is, but this is the first time I'm hearing about it from you.
Right.
And experiencing it, right? I mean, everyone is longing for a relationship. And right now, the main way of relationship is social media, the screen, right? Especially with the pandemic. And the thing is, everyone is so enamored of so much information. What information are we actually providing them? And if you shared your passion that way, I'm more than sure there'll be some people like, oh, that's interesting. Let me tap into it a little bit more. But the thing is, we gotta get the rest of our parishioners, the people who are excited about this, actually promoting in some way and sharing their story about it. Because who would?
And I think and again, it's a shallow culture, right? So it's like, who's promoting it, right? You know what I mean? Is it somebody who's like me? Is it somebody who looks like me? Is it somebody who's popular? Is it somebody who has a lot of, attention on social media, right? So that's the other piece too. I mean, we've talked with youth ministers that, if you just have the nerds at your youth ministry, they can post a lot of stuff on social media, but no one will ever see it, right? It needs to be somebody who has a lot of likes, right? Or has a lot of attention, or has a lot of followers on Insta. So if you have somebody who has a lot of followers who's saying, hey, I'm going to go and, work on this issue of, moratorium on eviction, and it's really cool, that person's going to be able to speak 100 times louder than even the bishop. I'm sorry, Bishop, if you're watching. But you know what I mean? Like, really, I mean, the bishop can say, but who really see, when the bishop says something, who sees that? I imagine the demographic is a lot older than we're trying to target, right?
Right. And you're just kind of joking around, but when we started doing the shutdowns for the pandemic, I really joked around with my staff, like, let's get a TikTok account going, right? Because I was seeing so many.
I don't even think that's
really
a joke, right? I mean, I don't even think that's a joke. Like, I would say, like 3 years ago, I would have said that was a joke. And 3 years ago, when the Newman Center said we're going on Snapchat, I thought that was crazy, right? But again, like, they found that year that they started their Snapchat account, they found that the freshmen in college were all on Snapchat, and it was not cool to give your phone number out or your email out because that was too intimate. What you did is you gave out your Snapchat. And so then the person could snap with you for a while and then decide whether they wanted to give out their phone number or their email or share their account with you, right? It's like knowing, again, it's evangelization is all about knowing the culture, right? And I think we blow off the culture to, we as older people, I'm in my 50s, so I can say that, right? We and our people, we're like, that is just crazy, right? Some of the things my daughters say, I'm like, that's just nuts, that's crazy. But it's their culture, right? And again, me saying it's crazy and not honoring it is another way that we're not gonna get them involved unless we're in it. And I think you can't say enough too, even with young adults, we have a lot of young adults in their 20s at least that are still living at home, and their parents still have influence on them. So I think the family is really important, and that idea that creating opportunities for families to do together, targeting parents of kids that have teens and young adults at home. So many college students had to move back home with their parents, and I'm hoping they're all going to be out of the house next year for the sake of their parents. But I think, it could be that they're still home, right? And they have an influence. So I do think it's parents, but again, it's not necessarily grandparents, right? And I think a lot of times we have an easy way to reach the grandparents. It's called the bulletin, right? So you just get in the bulletin, or you buy an ad in all the bulletin. There's only 2 bulletin companies that do all the bulletins in the.
I didn't know that.
In the diocese, I didn't know that either. Really is. I think there's a couple of small ones, but like 90% of the bulletins are produced by 2 companies. So if you buy ads with those 2 companies, you can have an ad for that issue in every single bulletin in the thing, and it's not that expensive, right? But who are you reaching with that ad?
Right.
You're reaching the over 60 set or over 65 set.
And kind of going back to the understanding the culture, right? I'm in my late 30s, so I was in that generation that learned how to use computers and has adapted, right? As MySpace and Facebook has come out, right? I know TikTok now, Snapchat not so much, but things are going to evolve where I am no longer in touch, right? It's already happening. and it's going to reflect on how the organization moves forward. And so having that voice of the new culture as it's evolving is very important to keep our ministry alive, and to be able to connect with youth and young adults, because otherwise, we're going to lose that connection. We're going to have to like restart again, right?
No, for sure. And that in itself can be challenging. And so the whole question is, what are we going to push and sacrifice in order to make that happen? What partnerships are we going to make? How are we going to reach out? Because maybe it's not about hiring someone younger. Maybe it's finding those influencers who you could partner with to get to be on your team, to work with, to help you advertise, to help come to programming. And it's reaching out beyond just the traditional means, I would think.
I do think some kind of volunteer. I mean, again, this is so funny because back in 2008, we had an employee here, Carson Weber. Maybe somebody online remembers Carson Weber, but he was here for a while, and he was just a prophet as far as the digital space goes. I mean, back then in 2008, he was saying everybody needs to hire a full-time person to manage their website and their social media in the parish, right? He had a full-on podcast in 2008, right? That was
Wow.
one of the first Catholic podcasts was Carson Weber on iTunes. And the other thing he did while he was here is we had come up with an idea that we just need a group of kind of volunteer, maybe not their volunteer. We were trying to convince the bishop to pay them, but we need a group of like online evangelists, right? Like we need, again, that idea that Catholic Charities would hire somebody whose sole purpose is to evangelize and connect with people on social media. Because trust me, I've got my staff working. I mean, we probably do 15 to 20 hours a week. That's almost a person, half-time person on social media. And our social media isn't that good. I mean,
I love your social media. I love the Deacon quotes.
Oh, you like those? So good. You're one of the only people that reads them. I'm always pushing them, like, you guys got to get it more popular. I want people to read my quotes. But I think that the thing is that we try, right? But we, if we really wanted to go to the next level, we would need to spend some real money, and we need to hire a real person to do it. I mean, it just takes that investment, right? But we're not willing to. I mean, the diocese is not willing to make that investment right now, and most parishes aren't, And so, I know that Catholic Charities always has a lot of money. So I think that you guys should hire an online evangelist, and we can do some things together. Try to get our followers up. But I do think it's important, and I think Carson used to say these things, and everybody thought he was completely insane. He also almost got fired once because he led a day of reflection for RCIA directors, and he pulled out his phone. He said, okay, you guys, we're gonna take some time for quiet prayer. And he pulled out his phone, and 2 people emailed the diocese saying Carson was just playing games on his phone. And he was saying the office, the prayers of the church on his phone. But nobody at that time knew that you could get the prayers of the church on your phone, because it was an iPhone 2, and nobody had an iPhone in the RCIA group. They were all, they were all over 65. So anyway, they were really mad that he was playing on his phone when he was actually praying on his phone, right? And so again, and now look where we are, right? Like, I mean, during the pandemic, we can't have missalette, so everybody's on their phone on the missalette at church the other day, and I was like, I just thought about.
I mean, I use the My Parish app all the time. Yeah. That's the quickest way I can connect to my parish. I know what's going on. I love them. It's a text message, right? It's an instant message. It's easy. It's readable. I swipe it. I'm done. So I understand, right? Going more towards what's accessible. How are we reaching our audience? I do want to give Jimmy maybe some time to provide input or feedback, right? Because as chairman of the board, we've talked a lot about reaching out, being strategic, and engaging our youth. So what are your feedback? What are your thoughts, Jimmy?
Interesting conversation, because I think the first part of this at least has been a good understanding of what the problems are, communicating what the problems are, trying to get beyond our borders into a vocabulary and language that meets our youth. What I was thinking about as this conversation was going on is how do we meet sort of the youth and young adults where they're at the moment. And my experience is, by that I mean physically, like a lot of families are stressed. One or two parents, kind of lost their job or got laid off, or, there are stresses in terms of the jobs that they work at. The restaurants are closed. So the typical stressors, relievers, and you'd find themselves as often the silent inhabitants of the household. They're experiencing all of this stress because it bleeds off the adults and the brothers and sisters sometimes. And so I'm thinking, how do we ask them whether or not we could use them to help create a very kind of down to earth, not spectacular necessarily response to that from our faith tradition. So, walking along with our brothers and sisters, the neighbor down the street, the bag of groceries, those are all kind of typical. But I'm thinking about the initiative that we've been also trying to work on, which is case management. So we find as people come into the rectory or the church, they're carrying a lot of loads, which they often don't share, but, which sometimes are building, sometimes are growing, and they're eating, sort of the energy reserves that families have to cope. And so I'm just, trying to put some of those together to see and I'm sympathetic because, I was at a Catholic Charities myself for a while about trying to find projects. We tried lots of things, including junior board to help, create some of the projects that we're talking about. But I think in this particular case, less is more. And by that, I mean, it's hard to find the bigger projects and then plug into that. And then you got to get screened and you got to have your fingerprints. And, I can't tell you how many times that's it. My fingerprints probably exist in every medium between here and Chicago. But
better not do anything bad.
Smaller things, I think, where you can plug in, an hour a night during homework time where you call 5 of your friends and, maybe they start off just with a prayer group or something, but I don't know what those answers are, but I know from listening to you and, I've been listening to Miriam too for a while that, the challenges are great. And the questions that we throw at it are even greater. But then how do we get beyond that to pick out the 1 or 2 or 3 things that occur to us right now, small ball rather than Major League Baseball?
I do think that something.
Teacher for asking me.
I do think that when Anthony and I and Alex talk about, Alex is the other member of our staff, when we talk about young adult ministry, we are trying to expand what groups do, the variety of groups, the diversity of groups. We realize that a lot of our groups, are only attracting one ethnic group, or they're only attracting one kind of Catholic, right? We want to have a diversity of groups so that every young adult can find a group where they feel like they belong. It connects with their spirituality. It connects with who they really are, right? And they don't feel like they have to be someone different than they are when they come to the group, right? We've experienced that a lot. So what we're hoping and is that we can create some young adult groups, small, it might be a very small group of 5 or 6, up to a larger group that has multiple small groups that would be committed to service and social justice in all aspects, right? Some of those would be the simple things that they could kind of organize their own in their neighborhood. I think that's a great idea, Jimmy. Another, some of them might be connecting to these projects, on doing advocacy around different issues and bills and all of that. Right? And some of them would be centered around, really, frankly, what young adults really like to do, which is go on adventures, right? Mission trips, immersion programs, right? These kind of things, right? Because more and more parishes are struggling with the staff and the finances and the legal stuff to do those kind of projects, right? We're seeing a lot fewer overnight retreats. We're seeing a lot fewer mission trips for youth and young adults. We're seeing a lot fewer people going to World Youth Day. So that idea that if Catholic Charities could provide a vehicle for young adult groups and youth groups to be able to have mission trip experiences, could also, provide some of these small group projects that we talked about before. But I think also, Jimmy, that whole idea of like, how would I, how do I connect with my neighbors, right? I've often thought, and I preached several times about this, that if we were really doing what we said we were, being Catholic, being disciples of Jesus, that each of us who is a disciple of Jesus, no matter where we live, in our apartment building, in our neighborhood, on the street, we would be that guy or that girl in the neighborhood that people know that they could come to, and we would actually help them. We'd connect them with services, we'd pray for them, we'd be available, not so busy that we don't have time to talk or listen. We would be the person who could provide childcare if they needed it, or connect them to somebody who did. Like, if we were just that house of hospitality, or that apartment of hospitality, or that, whatever, mother-in-law unit of hospitality on the street, right? Then think how much amazing our world would be, right? But I don't think that we are that guy, right? That there's usually somebody on your street who you can count on. Is that the Catholic person, right? Is that person committed to social justice? Because social justice starts with good hospitality, respecting people whoever they are, and helping where you can, right? And not being so busy that you ignore the people and the service project that's right in front of your house, right in front of your business as you walk into work, right? I mean, Anthony and I probably could find a lot of projects walking down Broadway today, right? I mean, we left this building, walked down Broadway, all of the encampments that we pass by and completely ignore. So we're not any better than anybody else. I'm just saying that, if we want to do this, we got to start, we got to rethink. So I think it's all those things. It's creating potential youth groups. It's creating ways. It's re-envisioning what we mean by service. And I think you're exactly right, Miriam. It's adding in that part about like, hey, part of living the social justice teachings is getting politically involved around certain issues. And it's not one issue. There's a lot of issues, right? And I think a lot of times our young adults, think, it's only, if I want to get politically involved, it's only going to be about, one issue or two issues that are really loud in our parish. But if we could make room to, to advertise these other issues that are, really important as well, I think that would be great.
Yeah, another thing I would like to add to that is we have to really model the experience that we want them to share. A lot of young adults have the whole task of, I need to get a job, be successful in my career, and that's my focus. That doesn't say anything about hospitality, about service, about care for another person, about the 7 themes of Catholic social teaching. And the thing is, how are we providing that for them and experiencing it for them? When it comes down to it, people are looking for belonging and significance. If they belong to community, and if what they do is significant to others, are they actually missed? Are they actually needed? We say they're needed, but where have we gone to really express them? Hey, we need you, we want you, let's work on something together, right? And so, but that's a tough question to answer. So the whole question is, how can we really focus on that, reach out to them, let them know that they're needed and wanted, and that we want to journey with them and want to help them learn how to do CST. I think that could help a whole lot.
Sorry, so I just want to make sure, because I do have a little bit of connection issue. You still hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. So I'm very much inspired by, this conversation today. And as you were talking about ministry and mission trips, I was like, well, it does need to be local, right? We could do our own mission trip locally. And, Catholic Charities, at least from Catholic Charities USA, the gospel that the strategic plan is based off of is the Good Samaritan, and we are called to play each role within the Good Samaritan. And so, the first thing that popped into my head is, how do we build that innkeeper mentality, right, in practice? Because we are left to care for others. We're left to really heal the wounds and accompany and walk with those who are suffering. And so how do we, together with, Catholic Charities and your office, how do we partner and bring that innkeeper mission? You know, let's make it local. How do we, because a lot of times we go to church and we don't even know who sits next to us. Right, it's a very individual experience. But if you're an innkeeper, you say hi, you say how's your family, you know more about them, right? And you are able to have that deeper conversation, and that's a way you live out your faith, right? And then expanding your circle, like you were saying, Deacon, you know, who are you in your neighborhood or in your apartment building? Are you participating? Are you really putting yourself out there to be the innkeeper of your neighborhood? So I don't know, just some thoughts to share.
Great thought. And the first thing that comes to mind is they don't know what they don't know. That's a fact. And the thing is how are we at Oya, at Catholic Charities, at the parish level, really promoting that lifestyle, that culture? Because there's so much that our Catholic faith has to offer that it could they could be overwhelmed. And so how are we actually providing that information in a way that makes it easy for them to really adopt into their lives?
Right.
And I think, you know, again, I'm biased because I'm a deacon, but, you know, at the Last Supper, Jesus washed the disciples' feet and said, you need to be servants, right? I mean, are we really communicating that to kids? And, you know, my concern is, like I said, I mean, if you look at an average textbook in one of our kids' faith formation classes at a Catholic school or whatever, it always ends with, you need to go and put this into action. And then there's no outlet to do that. The faith formation class doesn't do that. The preaching isn't do that. There's nothing in the bulletin that lets you do that, except I said bringing cup of noodles and diapers and all that. I'm not saying cup of noodles, clean socks, diapers, but I'm just saying, like, it's just scratching the surface, right? Like, that's a second grade activity. So then in third grade, what do I get to do? You know, and I want to put those diapers on a baby, right? I want to do, you know, or something, right? I want to reach out to people in my neighborhood. So it has to start at a younger age. And I think with the young adults, we have to capture their imagination somehow by giving them an experience, right? And that's the only reason I say, you know, I think local mission trips would be great, but I think the first mission trip, they probably want to go somewhere and do something, right? You know, they want to see the world, right? It's on their bucket list or whatever, right? So if we did something that was a adventure, right? And even if it's locally, what's the adventure, right? What's going to be? And again, it's sad that they just don't want to serve for the case of serving, right? But again, when you get started, you know, you go on a mission trip. You know, that's what, in my generation, that's what you did. You went on a mission trip, and the people, you know, and some of those people got addicted to mission trips. And they just went to mission trips all the time, right?
Interesting.
My sister met her husband on a mission trip, right? I mean, that's something that you do.
It's the whole idea of actually maturing their faith and understanding of what CST is, of what service is. I mean, it's like spirituality. If we just keep teaching them the basic level of, oh, you're a loved child of God, how are they going to mature into the actual full disciple they're called to be? And so helping them mature. And mission trips are huge, especially when it goes into a whole new area where they never experienced, because they're taken out of their world and it grows.
Yeah.
I've been in connection with a new youth minister that I kind of help foster, and he has youth who want to go to mission trips. But the thing is, he has no way to bring them because of the pandemic. No groups are starting up again. And so he's like, okay, are you guys doing anything in Dice Sacramento for it? I'm like, I'll get back to you. Because I'm not sure yet.
Yeah.
Miriam's number,
right?
Take care of them, right? That's what we'll start giving all of them Miriam's number, and Miriam will take care of them. That's right. Okay, Miriam, put your number on the chat. We'll take it.
Right. But remember, there's three of us. There's three Catholic Charities.
There you go. And honestly, it could be because then I used to take people into San Francisco, and this going to the Tenderloin changed their experience, changed their understanding of the world. And so we just got to find those experiences, especially at the local level, to help them understand, like, hey, there's people in your backyard who need support. You could do something about it.
Yeah, so many people just right next door, you know, suffering in silence, and they don't know who to go to.
Well, and I do think that good sacramental preparation, we're going to be pushing this in the next 5 years. Good sacramental preparation includes a service component. You know, if Catholic Charities were to come up with some kind of a thing that the DREs could usually use to engage people in that service component for First Communion, for First Reconciliation, for confirmation, for, you know, for marriage and baptism. I mean, I'm really feeling serious about trying to, you know, I don't know if the bishop will go for it, because, you know, we've been doing baptism and marriage a certain way for a long time, but this idea of of embedding some kind of service and social justice work into the sacramental preparation of First Communion, baptism, and marriage, right? I mean, I think it's important and essential, right? It's part of fully living out your faith. And those sacramental preparation moments, especially for young adults, are key, right? You know, and remember, most, you know, the church does not find young adults to age 39, so most second graders have, you know, a lot of second graders have a young adult parent too, right? I mean, they're still in that young adult group. So the parents that are going through those sacramental prep in baptism and First Communion are another really good target for service and social justice.
Well, awesome. We are wrapping up here soon, but I did want to give you guys an opportunity, you know, to talk about any upcoming events, you know, share your social media. We'll obviously be sharing your stuff on our page, and hopefully, right, we'll be cross-sharing here. But I think there's definitely a future conversation about how do we dive deep into planning and, you know, rethinking how, as a diocese, as a ministry, how we're going to do this. All right. So I'm excited. I'm very inspired. So Anthony, Deacon, Kevin, if you have anything that you want to share, this is your time.
Thanks for your ministry, guys. I'm afraid I got to run, but thank you so much.
Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you for your
Pleasure to
time.
meet you, Jimmy.
Thank
Not my time. It's all I got.
you. Well, I throw a couple things out there. We just announced that On Fire is going to happen live this year on September 18th on Saturday in Yolo Solano at Six Flags Discovery Kingdom on Saturday, September 18th. onfirenorcal.com is the website, and we're going to be selling tickets. Tickets will go on sale in a couple weeks, and we're super excited that that'll be an in-person event again.
Nice.
Also wanted to let, maybe you could talk about Into the Mix. And
Sure. Into the Mix, it's a young adult event that's online right now. And the main thing is basically, it's a place for young adults to gather, hear about theology. We have a host who has guests come on to talk about different aspects of our faith. So you just log on in, check it out. It's on YouTube at scd.org, or the SCD Oya page on YouTube, I believe, right?
And it's Oya with 2 Y's.
Correct. Correct. And then,
oh yeah.
and then ministry.
Yeah.
It's not the Kool-Aid Man. It's not. It sounds like the Kool-Aid Man, but it isn't. No, that dates me. But anyway, also we have tell them about Navigate.
Oh, Navigate. It's for teens. So basically on, I believe, the second Sunday of each month, we have a gathering on YouTube and Zoom in which youth ministers and youth ministries from across the diocese gather to really have a virtual youth night. Basically, we want to provide a space for all youth of the diocese to gather, have fellowship, get to know the Catholic faith a little bit more, and just meet people. And so if you're interested, check it out, scd.org/navigate.
Finally, we do have a summer camp program, and we're not doing sleep and wake camp for the kids themselves this year, but we are trying to keep our summer camp and the spirit of our summer camp alive with 4 programs. We're doing teen trips. We're doing a family camp for 4 weeks during the summer. We're doing day camps at 4 of our parishes. One is in Davis, which I believe is in Yolo Solano. And we're also, teen trips, parents. Oh, we're also doing there's also a virtual camp. And you can find out all about our summer camp programs at pendola.org.
Awesome. Well, I wanted to thank you so much for your time. I know you had a long day, so I really appreciate you sharing your thoughts and your inspiration. I'm inspired. I hope everyone out there has found some inspiration. And I do encourage you to follow not only Catholic Charities, Yolo Solano on our social media, but also Oya with 2 Y's. I love them on Instagram. It's definitely a morning inspiration. I just kind of scroll through, kind of get my inspiration for the day. I love it. And I foresee a lot of great conversations with this group to talk about what else can we do and work together. And yeah, I'm excited.
Great. Thank you, Mary. Thanks for the time, and we appreciate being on.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thanks for inviting us.
Yeah, of course. All right. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.